Hello everyone and welcome to this pre-recorded presentation for Les Blancs by Lorraine Hansberry. This pre-recorded session is all about introducing you to Les Blancs by Lorraine Hansberry, which has been added to Paper 1, Section B, Other Drama. In this session you will learn more about Les Blancs and the main themes of the play. You will look at the assessment and how the assessment objectives are approached. We will discuss how students from past series have performed on Section B of the paper. We can explore activities around teaching the play and learn more about the support available for this play on the Pearson website. So let's start by looking at a quick overview of the play and its themes. This has been taken from an introductory guide on the website which you can download. There is a link to this and all the other resources I will be discussing today on each slide. This is a very brief summary of the play taken from the guide on the Pearson website. You may want to pause this recording to read this and restart again when you are ready. There are two readily available versions of the play. One is published by Vintage and has several of Hansberry's plays, as well as an interesting introduction. There is also an edition by Samuel French. Both versions are suitable for use in the classroom. These are some of the themes identified in the guide on the Pearson website. Now the play covers a lot of ground and there are many themes and contexts that your students will want to explore and study. This is a short video from YouTube which shows a short scene from the National Theatre production of the play. You may want to pause the recording and watch this now. Or if you would like to watch this later and use some other resources, the link to this YouTube clip can be found in the guide on the Pearson website. I'm now going to look at what is assessed in Section B, Other Drama, and the assessment objectives you should aim to focus on in your teaching. Let's start by looking at what is assessed. This box has been taken from page 1 of the A-level specification and is the overview of assessment for Paper 1. So Paper 1 focuses on drama and is a written exam lasting 2 hours and 15 minutes. In this paper, students write about two plays, the Shakespeare play they have studied in Section A and then the other drama, in this case Les Blancs, which they have studied in Section B. As you can see from the highlighter here, Section B is marked out of 25 marks, and students will always have to answer one question from a choice of two. The questions on Other Drama assess AO1, AO2 and AO3. And here are the AOs for the question. So AO1 is articulate informed, personal and creative responses to literary texts, using associated concepts and terminology and coherent, accurate written expression. AO2 is analyse ways in which meanings are shaped in literary texts, and AO3 is demonstrate understanding of the significance and influence of the context in which literary texts are written and received. So there are two sets of questions available on the website. These are the questions from the SAMs, or the Sample Assessment Materials. The link to this paper is at the bottom of the slide. As you can see, there is a choice of question. So let's look at these in more detail. Question 17 starts with the phrase, explore how Hansberry makes use of, which encourages students to focus on AO1 and AO2. You will notice that in question 18, the phrase is explore Hansberry's presentation of, which also directs students to AO1 and AO2. Both questions then have a second sentence. You must relate your discussion to relevant contextual factors, which directs students to AO3. The questions on the previous slide focused on how Hansberry makes use of setting and Hansberry's presentation of education. This is the indicative content for question 17, how Hansberry makes use of setting. As you can see from the line at the bottom, these are suggestions only and any valid response is accepted. You may want to pause this recording and read the indicative content here and make a note of how it incorporates the three assessment objectives. And here is another set of questions from the EAMS or specimen papers, which can be found by following the link at the bottom of this slide. Here students have the choice between exploring how Hansbury makes use of sound or the presentation of De Koven in the play. And here is the indicative content for the question on how Hansbury makes use of sound. Again, you may want to pause this recording and read the indicative content here and make a note of how it incorporates the 3 assessment objectives. So as well as using the indicative contents for guidance, the examiner marks the work using a levels-based mark scheme. On this slide, I've included the descriptors for level 3 and 5 as the space is a little bit tight, but you can see the full grid by following the link at the bottom of the slide. As you will see, there are some descriptors in bold at the start of each level. So level 3 is clear relevant application / exploration. Level 4 is discriminating controlled application / exploration. And level 5 is critical and evaluative. And there are 3 bullets to address each assessment objective. So bullet 1 is AO1 and focuses on how students have articulated their arguments, their use of examples from the text, their use of terminology and concepts, the structure of the essay, and their expression. Bullet 2 is AO2 and focuses on how students have discussed the writer's craft and how meanings are shaped in texts. Bullet 3 is AO3 and focuses on how students have discussed the significance and influence of contextual factors and made links between the texts and their contexts. You may want to pause the recording now to read this grid in more detail and see what is expected of students at the different levels. Now that we have looked at what is assessed in the exam questions, let's move on to some feedback from the examiners from previous exam series. This is an interesting screenshot from another pre-recorded presentation called Paper 1 Summer 2019 Feedback Pack, which can be found by clicking on the link on this slide. So the feedback here is around encouraging students to consider the stagecraft within the play and remember to include this as part of the language or verbal elements of the play. You may want to pause the recording now to read this slide. It's important to note that this is just one piece of feedback and it's worth downloading and reading the whole presentation. And this is some feedback from the examiner report from summer 2022. Again, this is quite a detailed bit of feedback on one element of the responses, and it's worth downloading and reading the summer 2022 examiner report in full, as there are many other useful pieces of feedback. This report can be found by using the link below, and there are examiner reports for all of the series on the website. You may want to pause the recording now to read this slide. It is focused solely on AO1 and is from page 105 of the report. As you can see, there is some helpful advice here around approaching the question and making sure to read the requirements carefully. Now that we have seen what is required, the next few slides will talk you through how to start to approach the teaching of this text in the classroom using resources from the Pearson website. This is a screenshot from the scheme of work from the website. As you can see, it gives some idea around what to cover when reading the entire play and some exemplar resources you could include, as well as any other resources you may have found. There are also some links that you might find useful in the introductory guide on the website. And these are those links from the guide. You can download this guide using the link on the slide. There is also a lesson plan on the website around exploring what makes a text dramatic. Now there's a note of caution here as it was written for A Streetcar Named Desire and the extracts are from this play. However, this lesson plan is in Word and you can hopefully adapt it to use some of the resources and exercises within it. This slide shows one of the resources using dramatic devices. Now that we have discussed the play, the assessment and some possible ways to approach the text, let's finish off by looking at the support for this play and the rest of the A-level course. Here is a list of materials with links that I have used for this recording. There are other resources for other papers and sections of the qualification which can be found in the teaching and learning area of our website. This is the information for our subject advisor, Claire Haviland. She can be reached on the contact details on this slide. You can also sign up to her regular subject advisor updates, as well as booking a free 20-minute video appointment. We offer a lot of courses throughout the school year, and you can sign up for these via the Pearson Professional Development Academy. Thank you very much for listening, and I do hope this information was useful.